Welcome, everyone. My name's Steve, and this is Hard to Impress, episode 3. Tonight, I'm chatting with my good friend Randy Wilson from the band Carnival of Shadows and Explicit Underscore. I know I probably butchered that, and he'll tell me all about it later, which is his new hip hop project. Which, if you haven't checked it out, go on TikTok, find this video on Facebook. It's really awesome. Pretty cool to hear what he's doing there. I met Randy probably 2 years ago. I don't know if even he knows this, but the first show the band The Skywalkers played was his Skajama party down at Asbury Park. It's a show that will always stick in my head. It was us, Molly Rhythm, and the Upfucks, and great show, great time. It really lit a flame in us to want to play more. I found out about Randy and his bands through What Do You Know About Ska Punk? And it's funny that we've come full circle on this week where we've released This Is Not Jersey Comp, which has been awesome. Last I heard, we raised over $600 from various charities. So if you haven't seen that one, go check it out. And without further ado, I'm going to invite Randy to the stream. Randy, welcome.
Hey, how's it going?
Doing good. How are you on this Friday night?
Things are good. Can't complain much at all. It's been beautiful. For November, it's like spring, summer, I guess, right now. It's like 70 degrees today. Tomorrow, 70 degrees. It's awesome. Loving it.
Yeah. I always go back to my favorite joke from the live streams we were doing back in May. The wood paling, man. We've all got it.
Yeah.
In line with it.
Behold.
What flyers you got hanging up in the background?
So in the background, there's two back there. One's more recent than the other. The first one is a Stone Pony show a couple of years back. It's with the Toasters, Voodoo Glow Skulls. We played on that show. It was one of our earlier shows way back in the day, a couple of years. 2013. No, yeah, I think it was a year. It was right before Sandy hit, so 2012. That show was the Stone Pony. It was a zombie part of the zombie walk in Asbury Park. So we got to all zombie up and stuff like that, and it was kind of cool. Everybody was kind of skanking out to a bunch of just like ska and stuff like that, just as zombies. It was hysterical.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, the Toasters are one of my favorite. They're so good live.
Yeah, played with them twice. He opened up for them twice. Once there at the Stone Pony show, the Zombie Walk show, and then again we opened up with Joker's Republic. I want to say that was on Father's Day of 2018. I want to say it was over at the Stanhope House. First and only time we played the Stanhope House. Yeah,
we played there once. That's really out in the sticks.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a hike trying to get people out there.
Yeah. No, awesome, man. Yeah, as far as the Voodoo Glow Skulls, my favorite story about them is they played in Montclair once, and I was at the show, and I bumped into their drum set. Apparently, they had it set up next to the wall where the mosh pit was. And before I knew it, me and their drum tech were yelling at each other, and then the whole band asked me if I had a problem.
Wow. Those are the guys you don't want to piss off. Those guys are a little crazy.
So needless to say, I don't think I've never seen Streetlight Manifesto live, though I've been to their concerts twice.
I'm not sure how that works.
Yeah. Anyway, no. So thank you for joining me, man. I started doing this, because we're all in lockdown. COVID's awesome.
Oh, yeah.
And more importantly, I really wanted to highlight, there's a lot of good music still being made, even though we're not playing live and all that stuff. There's a lot of us still out there writing. So what I wanted to do was kind of get into who is Randy? How did Randy become a musician? Things along those lines. So if you don't mind kicking it off, what was kind of the thing that got you into music? Not so much the music you play now, just music in general.
I guess really, there was just a natural affinity, mostly how I was raised. I have two older brothers. So they're like 10 and 9 years older than me. So when I was like 6, they were like 16 and 15, and not to date how old I am and stuff like that, but we're talking about the 80s. So, in the house is constantly pumping between like Guns N' Roses and Run DMC in the house constantly. So I grew up with a lot of old school hip hop from the early days of hip hop, rap before it was even called hip hop, a lot of different rock and stuff like that, rock and roll in general. My parents were always big to music, was always car and music and stuff. So I was around music a lot. And we do have a couple musicians and artists in our family. So it's kind of, just ingrained in my upbringing for the most part.
Awesome, man. So what is kind of the one song you remember at an early age where you like you heard it and you're like, nah, this is my song, this is my jam.
I definitely want to say I really didn't quite grasp it, and I have a funny story about that. It's kind of actually kind of a mean story because there was a lot of bullies in my elementary school. Um, but when I was in like fifth or sixth grade, a bunch of kids knew that I didn't know me. It was kind of a little bit of outcast. You had my little circle of friends, but like the cool kids, so quote unquote, like, oh, haha, we're gonna joke on him and stuff like that. And they asked me if I knew who sung the song "It Takes Two," which is obviously Rob Bass. Um,
Hmm.
and at the time, I didn't really know it. I'm like, I really wasn't. I couldn't link songs to artists or whatever. So this one kid that was a jerk as well whispers in my ear and it says Debbie Gibson. So I'm like, okay, I guess it's Debbie Gibson, and so everybody got a good laugh out of that and stuff like that. And but like around seventh and eighth grade, I started getting into it more, and I guess I started listening to a lot of rap at that stage of the game. Some Anthrax as well, like early Anthrax, like Attack of the Killer Bees. That was just one of my jams that I was rocking constantly at the time. So probably I want to say like, there was that collab between Anthrax and Public Enemy for Bring the Noise, which is probably one of the things I pumped the most at that time frame, I guess.
Cool, man. Cool. So, what would you say was what instrument, I guess, did you take up? A lot of people I interview, they've gone from horns to guitar, they've gone from piano, they start on guitar and went to drums. Kind of, what was your path to becoming a musician?
Well, I started off with rap actually. I started writing rap lyrics in around seventh grade or so. So actually, it was a lot of that until I decided to actually become a music major. Now, a little backstory on that: went to Catholic elementary school and a Catholic high school. So basically, from pre-K through 12, I was in a Catholic school in Brooklyn, and in Catholic schools, they don't teach music at all whatsoever. So unlike public schools, who you get some introduction to some basic instruments, I couldn't read or play a note of music until I became a music major in college. So I went to
Wow.
college without knowing anything about music. Like I was like 18 years old learning "Twinkle Twinkle a Star" on a recorder. But eventually, I my first instrument I picked up at the time was obviously guitar. I basically hacked at it for about 2 years before I actually started taking actual lessons properly. So once I took lessons and understood how to play guitar properly, was there, and then through college, was required to learn piano. And eventually, got pretty adept at piano. But yeah, so like in college, I studied jazz and blues guitar. So I actually have a whole background on a lot of standards and stuff like that, from like the old jazz standards, Ellington, Miles, all that kind of stuff.
Oh, that's cool. That's very different. You don't hear that too often.
Yeah, big into like the old jazz cats, especially the old swing stuff, which is kind of like why kind of like you'll hear in Carnival Shadows. Sometimes the songs are ska, sometimes they're a little more swingy and stuff like that.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
there's a lot of influence.
So as you kind of, I guess, progressed out of college, what were some of the people who played guitar maybe you looked at and you're like, that's the style I like, things along that nature.
I never really got quite pinned to a specific artist. Like a lot of people like guitar traditionally will like beg down, drop on knees and bow down to like Dio and Vi and that kind of stuff like that. Like specific like amazing technical artists and excellent artists. I think it was more of a sound for me. It was always more a sound, not the person. And I was always very influenced by flamenco style guitar, like Spanish guitar, that kind of thing. Was always caught my ear a lot.
All right. Awesome. For those of us who don't really go along with that style of music, who's one or two artists you think we should check out to kind of get grasp of that style?
Ooh, that's a good question. Um, I mean, you could go back to your bossa novas and styles like that if you're going to go more Latin style, and especially in the jazz spectrum.
Hmm.
You got Antonio Carlos Jobim of Girl from Ipanema fame. Most people know that if you've ever been in an elevator before. Um, I would definitely go. Jobim is definitely probably one of the more influential styles of more that Spanish guitar, but flamenco style. I really couldn't pin it to, but thank God for YouTube and Google. You could just type in flamenco guitar and probably find about 15 different good hits, and usually the top hits are usually the best more often than not.
Awesome. So let's kind of progress this. I guess, what was the first band you were in then, since you were a music major in college? What was the first band you were in?
My first band actually started before that. Like, so I got a guitar before I started college, but I couldn't really play it. So I had my close friends in Brooklyn I grew up with, and I knew since I was a kid and stuff like that. I tried to lure them into a band and stuff like that. They weren't musically inclined at all whatsoever. Again, we all went to Catholic school, and it wasn't really a passion of theirs. But like I tried to get like my best friend Dwayne. I tried to get him into so he actually went out. We went to Sam Ash in Brooklyn, out in Sheepshead Bay. I got what did I get? I got a Fender Squier, like every other starting guitarist, and he picked up a Yamaha bass at the time, and we both didn't know how to play, so we were just like, okay, we have the instruments, now what? It's kind of like, all right, just add water equals band. I don't know, so did try to form that up. But the first band actually started with was called Distant Second. And Distant Second was a very electronic project. A lot of my influences in high school, especially, tended to go more into, it was either a combination of like, whether it was rap side of things, hip hop, Cypress Hill, Wu-Tang Clan, all that kind of era, Black Sheep. And then the opposite side of that was a very hard driven. Like initially, like it was like when I was like 13, 14, I was big into Metallica and Anthrax. And then it became this whole some of the metalheads in high school were like, well, if you listen to Black Album, you're a poser, sort of deal. You're not listening to anything hard enough, sort of deal. I was like, okay, fine. So, but I got into Nine Inch Nails around the time period, right around when I guess it was Downward Spiral came out, which was obviously like one of their most, signature albums. So it's very Nine Inch Nails driven, that and Red Hot Chili Peppers. And that ended up becoming they became my vocal teachers. Basically, I was just pretty much singing Red Hot Chili Pepper songs and Nine Inch Nails songs together. It's became a very interesting combo vocal style. So Distant Second was a very electronic project. Initially started off as just me in my studio messing around with like early versions of Fruity Loops, FL Studio, which I still use to this day for my electronic stuff, which we'll talk about later. So Distant Second was mostly an electronic project. Then eventually I brought a couple of people into that project over time and space of things. When I was in college still, I grabbed one or two guys. I did volunteer work at the college radio station. I went to College of Staten Island. WSIA is a radio station there. So I was an engineer there, but doing production, doing the commercial spots with my buddy Izzy. He was the head of the department at the time, and we became good friends since then. And I was just spin like rock music and punk and stuff like that on the air. I grabbed a couple of guys from there that were interested in music, obviously. So they were the initial people in the band, but that never really got outside of the basement until later down the road.
That's awesome. So, I guess in total, how many bands have you been in?
Honestly, just two. If you count the side project with Explode _, that is kind of not really a band sort of deal. It's just an electronic musician for the most part. Really it's just the two bands I've actually made,
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I'm finding it to be a common theme. Jay Disposable told me he's only ever been in one band, really.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah, I watched an interview last week. That was awesome.
Yeah. And if you haven't watched it, you can go down the Facebook feed. You'll find it. So I guess let's ask the $1 million question. How did you start Carnival of Shadows?
Carnival of Shadows actually was a transition. Like my era was changing over space and time from Distant Second. So Distant Second, for a while, we had a nice little streak there. So I had moved to North Jersey back in 2007. I was living up in the Parsippany neck of the woods, and I had just gotten divorced. I was married once before I currently am, and I now have this 2-bedroom apartment, and I have space for a little studio area. So I was like, all right, I'm going to find some local musicians on Craigslist, because Craigslist was the thing back in the day. A little less now, but it was better back then. And so I grabbed two guys as a bass player, and I grabbed a guy that was interested in keyboards. Now we had to struggle with the drummer, so we did a lot of programming on the drum, so with the Fruity Loops again, that kind of stuff. But with space and time, we played shows out. We played in the city. We played up in North Jersey. At one point, I was living in Boonton. They used to have a place called Boonton Avenue Grill that became kind of our home venue, because it was literally around the corner from my house. I could walk my gear over. But over time, I started getting into steampunk a little bit, and that there, besides steampunk as a culture, like a cosplay culture, steampunk also generated steampunk music, like Abney Park. and a bunch of other guys. The Cog is Dead. Really cool stuff. And if you haven't heard that stuff before, really just take a listen to it. It's actually really cool music. I'm a little older now, but they're still around, still playing. And so I was like curious to like add other instruments into the sound to give that more folky type sound to it, but mix electronic into it. So it was on the verge of me relocating down the shore. I got laid off from my job in North Jersey. I was working in the school system up there in 2010, and I was moving down to Bradley Beach, and I was traveling back up north to keep the band together and everything else. And we listened to different sounds. We wanted to get a violin player in the band. So I was like, all right, let's get a violin player. We had a violin player for a little bit, and she wasn't really feeling what we were doing and stuff like that, so it didn't work out. But my ear was now peaked to there. And right about the same time period in 2010, like middle of 2010, my dad had been on dialysis and had a kidney transplant. And the kidney transplant, the doctors botched the job up, and so he ended up dying instead of being a good day. It was pretty tragic. So from that point, just like went to a bit of a, obviously like normally most people would do, go into a bit of a depression on that. Picked up my acoustic guitar that I had laying around. I was now living in Bradley Beach at the time. And just started playing some songs. There was a song called The Legend, which was initially one of the early Carnival of Shadows songs. So I was still playing with the same players from Distant Second, just trying to transition out into this new project. And eventually, just the Distance in Time kind of became like its own thing or whatever, got hard to make the travel all the time, and eventually just kind of like broke off from those guys and just kind of wrote music for about a good year in 2010, 2011, and picked up a bass player along the way. A bass player I had this guy, Darren. And so Darren, me and me were pretty much the band at the time, and we grabbed a couple of drummers here or there along the way. We did play Stone Pony a couple times, whatnot, with that configuration, which the three of us, you had a drummer, Darren on bass and myself for a couple of years. And then we did pretty good for a while there. And we switched drummers out a lot. Like, currently in Carnival Shadows, we're now on our 8th drummer. I'm like, fortunately, Nelson has been sticking around for about 4 years now. He'll probably correct me on that in the chat feed or something like that. But so that was going for a while and stuff like that. And then Nelson had joined the band ultimately. And then Darren had some drug issues and stuff like that, as well as some, other issues and stuff like that, which caused a lot of issues around the Asbury Park punk scene and stuff like that. He had this whole to do with the ex-girlfriend and stuff like that. And I was trying to steer him away from that, trying to make him, he's basically, it was bad. It was like, he had restraining orders against him and stuff like that. He just was not getting the hint and stuff. So, and he had drug issues too. And due to the court case and stuff like that, he ended up overdosing on some over-the-counter medication and stuff like that in 2000. And I guess that was 3 or 4 years ago now. Well, Nelson was in the band, so about 3 years ago. And then we picked up that summer after I was trying to get the band back on track and stuff like that, after Darren had passed back in April of that year. Went on and that's when Andy joined the band. I knew Andy through the SCA. If you know what the SCA is, that's the medieval reenactment group. So basically we do like Ren Fair type stuff. It's like, think about the MMA meets cosplay, sort of deal. Like, they call it LARPing or whatever. Picture LARPing meets the MMA sort of deal. That's kind of what you got. So I knew Andy do that, and that became the current configuration. We had an older guy that was playing trombones at the time, and Andy is a brewer, so Andy was bringing over beers all the time and stuff like that. And the older guy didn't like the fact that we were drinking while playing and stuff like that. He got all shitty about it, and he left. And eventually, we've been working with a couple of guys. One guy who's written a lot of parts for us, this kid Michael Ventoso, who's a virtuoso trombonist, absolutely fabulous, player. Just very busy and not always there. So we kind of rotate between 2-3 guys that we kind of hire for shows. So that's a long-winded version.
Wow, that's a wild ride you guys took there. Sorry to hear about your dad. I didn't know that story.
Yeah. It's a little bit of a shitty decade. This 2010, 2020 is not looking also awesome.
I was gonna say either this is the year it tips for you, or Carnival of Shadows, right?
Yeah, exactly. And like that's kind of part of the name is like the celebration in darkness. Is Carnival of Shadows.
So let's dive into your guys' releases. How many releases have you put out?
I guess depends which way you look at it. For the most part, we made one initial album when I recorded with one of our drummers right before he kind of got a hissy fit when Darren was still around. We put out an album called Carousel, which is, was a flagship song on the album. It was about like I think 12 or 13 track album or so. I still actually have about like 450 CDs of the 500 CDs I had printed on that one. We actually released that during, we were playing at the Stone Pony. One of the last times we played Stone Pony, we opened up for, it was the Go-Go Bordello Flogging Molly show over at the Stone Pony. Part of the deal with that is when you are a local venue player, you don't get to play on the summer stage. You get to play inside, and they don't tell people that there's music actually going on inside. So instead, you're waiting a line around the corner. While I could have actually used your ticket to go inside early, got some beers, listen to some local music. So we played for, our usual crowd of people and stuff like that, which, the average 15, 20 people a local band brings out and stuff. But yeah, we released that album then. And then we went back and we recorded some stuff and modified a couple tunes and put out Creepy EP Revisited. So Creepy EP was actually a predecessor. So theoretically, I guess Creepy EP came out first. It was like 3 to 4 tracks from the Carousel album. So those two releases came out in an earlier configuration, the current lineup for the band. We did a 3-track revised version with newer recordings with current members of the band, which has Karma, Down But Not Out, and Carousel on it. And then more recently, we just released, as you were saying before, on the What Do You Know About Ska Punk? This is Jersey, not California, CA. Is a most recent release. On there, you have our song Special Place in Hell. So latest thing. And we are working currently on recording some new stuff right now.
Awesome. Can you take us through your process of how you guys go about recording? Do you go to a studio? Do you do it at home? Do you guys all play together? Do you go a piece at a time? Kind of what is the process for you guys?
In a normal world situation, basically from the point of, songwriting stage, like I would come up with an idea and stuff like that. And, I'd record it, with the, on like a, webcam or whatever. And I post it into our Google Drive. We have like a shared Google Drive, and so they can listen to it and then play along to it, come up with some parts. Then once we're ready to, like we're doing, getting ready to record, we were actually recording right here in the studio, where you see behind me, not behind you. Actually have a, what is that? A Zoom R24, which is an 8-channel mixer, but you can record 24 tracks like subsequently to SD card. So I basically have a background in audio engineering myself through college. And so basically we just go, we'll multi-track, we'll get the drums down, then like traditional studio type style, and just pretty much work out of here. But we have found that we now, during COVID, when we record a Special Place in Hell, we want to get more recordings out and stuff, that we found that all of us have actually pretty decent quality recordings to just all do it at home, and we just been swapping files and stuff. So we have one more song that the guys are currently recording now, which is called Consolation Prize. And that song basically right now, like I recorded a scratch track, to a metronome with guitar and vocals, and then Nelson came back with his drum tracks and uploaded them to the drive. And so I mixed them down into my DAW, which I use Cakewalk Sonar, which is now BandLab Sonar, which is free, by the way. If you ever need a good DAW, it's actually excellent. So Andy's right now is recording that. So basically we're just doing it remotely right now, and it seems to just be working out really well. You could hear the quality of the recording in Special Place in Hell. I was actually pretty impressed with how it turned out. And I was like, wow, yeah, we could just record entire albums without having to leave our houses now. This is awesome.
Yeah, it's like did you ever hear the band The Postal Service?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's how they did it. I think one guy lived in New York City, one guy was in San Francisco, and I think they were using tape, and they were literally recording the tape and then mailing it, and then the next guy would get it, record it, and then mail it back, and that's how they came up with the name The Postal Service.
That's awesome. I didn't know that.
Yeah. I guess kudos to the Postal Service for never actually losing that mail, because they lose mail all the time.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah. Have a backup copy of backup copy of backup copy for sure.
Yeah. So can you tell us a little bit about, I know you also have a record label.
Yeah.
I'm not going to attempt to pronounce it because I butcher it every time I try. Can you give us the rundown? When did you start this, and kind of what's your plan for it?
Sure. So basically, it's Conflagration Records. So conflagration is, by definition, is an all-destructive fire. So basically, it's like when an entire development or a town burns to the ground for the most part. Um, was actually inspired, ironically enough, back in the '70s in Asbury Park, which is kind of like where I was near at the time of like a lot of my music and kind of where a lot of our music and Carnival Shadows mostly bases out of. Back in the '70s, there was a huge fire and stuff like that during a lot of race riots and stuff like that. A lot of Asbury Park kind of burnt to the ground down in Springwood Avenue, and they called it conflagration, and it kind of stuck with me from there and stuff like that. So conflagration is just like it's like like the term that's used in hip hop a lot is like, oh, that song's fire, son, that song's fire. It's like it's not just fire; it's a conflagration, man. It's gonna burn your shit down. So. Yeah, and I have a couple of firefighter friends that may or may not be watching this right now and stuff like that. And one of them's like, I absolutely love that word. And on the fire department, we use conflagration all the time. It's my favorite word.
That's awesome.
So anyway, a backstory of how I got to this path, really, for the most part, is that while I'm a musician, I like playing shows and doing live stuff. My main focus since I was like 15, 16. So I started writing hip hop and rap back in like the 7th, 8th grade and stuff like that. I wrote a song called about the Zodiac Killer, if you remember the Zodiac Killer back in New York City and stuff like that. And that eventually led into more songwriting, which I found out that we had a friend of the family that had a recording studio. He actually did he did the intro music for George Foreman to go into the ring when he fought and stuff like that. So he got some decent royalties from that, built a little recording studio, and I actually fell in love with being in a recording studio. I loved the environment. I loved everything about it. So I was like, this is what I want to do. So I decided I was going to become a music producer, which is why I went to college for music major and stuff like that, because I wanted to go into music production. It was like my thing. So, and ultimately, that path would lead, obviously, it says, okay, if I'm going to be a music producer, I need a means of distributing this stuff. And so eventually I was like, all right, I need to figure out how to make a label and stuff like that. And eventually became a very easy process for the most part. An environment, especially now where we are now, that even like the concept of CDs, I'm like, people tell me, says, do you guys prefer like, getting music online? Do you prefer like physical copies and stuff like that? And very few people say physical copies, and they say like, we buy a CD to support the band. We never actually open the casing and stuff like that. So it's like, well, I don't need to spend money pressing CDs and stuff like that. Then, it's kind of a waste. You could just go into Spotify and listen to the songs for free and stuff, and I'm good with that. I'll get some I'll get 1 cent for every 8 million plays or something like that, whatever Spotify offers these days.
Yeah, I totally hear you. I've got boxes of CDs from my old bands too, and now looking back on it, it's just like, what a waste. Yep. I mean, I don't even bother. Everything's just digital. Just have it. It's cool. Just tell me you listen to it. That's basically your fee at this point.
Yeah, pretty much. And that's kind of what it's become more recently and stuff like that. I feel like, if you make music and stuff like that, instead of trying to sell a song for $1 a pop, like on iTunes or whatever, it's like the people who like your music, people who are like the band or the artist or whatever, are going to buy some merch at some point in time. They're going to buy a T-shirt or something like that. So trying to nickel and dime person per track, per song, whatever, and stuff like that, or even per album for the most part. It's like, the concept of things like Bandcamp are becoming more viable. But like Bandcamp right now is offering a free service temporarily again, so all royalties go to the artists and stuff like that. Or you can just make the tracks for free. You say pay what you want. If you want to throw something cool, it's like that's what it is. I'm like, you think about it, it becomes a bit of a tipping industry in a way. It's like, hey, it's like, if I have 10 million fans, if everybody throws me $1 a year or something like that, it's like I can make $10 million a year doing this. It's like crowdfund me by, listening to music. I don't know. But yeah, so Conflagration Records really just came out of means to really distribute stuff and also to try to like, bless you.
Thanks.
I've also a means to try to push through the doors, because I found as a band, if I want to go to a venue and say, hey, my band wants to play your venue, and they're like, who the fuck are you? And I'm like, well, I'm so-and-so. I'm like, well, I still know who you are, Are you famous that we don't want? Just like, well, that's a catch-22. I can't be famous if I don't let me play a show at your venue.
Yeah.
You've been there. So, so I found that when you actually are a record label and you send an email, they tend to pay attention and respond a lot faster. You can fake it till you make it for the most part. If you have like, well, I'm a label, my record label that I'm signed to. Yeah. So, you fake it till you make it a little bit. And that's kind of what it's become. And it's kind of worked out so far for the most part. We kind of, been like I said, it's just really Carnival Shadows on the label right now, as because there's no money coming into this project. And I'm doing like Grubhub and DoorDash pretty much to fund the project. Anytime we want to make T-shirts and stuff like that, or whatever sort of deal, any type of merch or investment. You can actually see some gear. I don't know if you can see this stuff here.
Yep.
This is actually a Sunway heat press, and behind here is a printer that can print not direct to garment, but can print sublimation printing. So I can actually make T-shirts, on demand in here now. So basically, that's where I'm kind of setting up this new thing. Been putting some money aside to basically create some merch on site here, basically on the on-demand system. So you go to the website, you say, need a T-shirt. Okay, so print you a T-shirt right here, right now. I don't have to go and buy 500 T-shirts, from a distributor someplace. I can just do it in-house now. So kind of simplifies things. If you keep the cost low overhead, there's really not much really involved. That and a DistroKid account really kind of does everything for us.
Yeah. But, it's funny. I think a lot of people miss what people do to fund their bands. I have a reverb shop. I scour Craigslist. I shouldn't probably sell myself out, but and I lowball people on guitar pedals, and some people take it, and then I go and sell them on Reverb, and whatever I make, I turn around and go, okay, I'm going to go buy this mic now, or this piece of software, this next thing. That's how I'm making my music too. It's not like sitting around getting bankrolled. Also, that's all I get. Like, you have to do something to fund it because it's your passion at that point. It's not even about the money's never coming back. It's not even about that at this point.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. It's like buying a house. It's just you just keep throwing money into it.
Don't do it. Anyone out there, don't buy a house.
True.
Especially not in New Jersey. And complain about taxes. You're not allowed to do that anymore.
Cheaper to live in a hotel. And they'll clean your room for you too.
That is true. And leave a nice mint on the pillow.
Yeah, there you go. But yeah, no, it's true. It is true how many people are just like, it's a labor of love investment, music in general. If you're going to be into it, it's like you're going to be buying a guitar, an instrument, equipment to record, whatever it might be, And again, like it says, part of, the label's main focus right now, besides just promoting our own shit, is to really just, obviously during COVID kind of killed progress for us a bit. We were really kind of picking up some steam, getting into some more venues and stuff, some new venues. Like we just played the last show before I think most anybody went to, was the Mardi Gras show at Bond Street. And, we were really starting to build a good relationship with them and stuff like that. And it was like a perfect spot for us. And then it was like, oh, yeah, all right, well, I guess we have to cancel the rest of our shows for the year now because, I'm not trying to get everybody, I care about sick.
Yeah, I went to the one in February. That was a great spot.
It
was kind of like a basement bar and had the open floor. And, yeah, the sound system was pretty good, too.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's a fun little place, a nice big speakeasy type style. And, what's really nice about it is that, it's linked to the two restaurants up top, Lotteria and Capitoline. And you could pretty much order food at the bar. And so you could eat, drink, and hang out there. You never have to actually leave there at all until they kick you out.
Awesome. So let me ask you, since you brought up live shows, what got you into that?
There's always been a desire to perform. As going far back as to like my earlier rap days and stuff like that. I always kind of envisioned being on a stage. I got over stage fright relatively quick for the most part. Fortunately, it wasn't one of those things that froze up, especially got all my kinks out with the early Distant Second project and stuff. Once we did start playing live in, places, it was just like, became this kind of like nervous energy, but like, it worked and stuff like that, Remember the first show I played, I don't know if it was the first show, but it was one of the first. We had Battle of the Bands. What was the place? This place called, I think it was called La Fontana, or Fontanas, or something like that, in the city. And they had this Battle of the Bands series. And it was a crazy setup, crazy show. Like, we still didn't have a drummer at the time. So I was starting the tracks off of a MacBook, because it's linked to like FL Studio, whatever I had going on there and stuff. And like then we had the rest of the band playing and played a pretty good set. For what it was actually pretty good. But it was like the first show ever. And we actually got through to the next round. It was like a several round Battle of Bands, and we got through to the next round. And I had such an energy buzz from that performance that night that I didn't sleep at all. Like I literally was staring at the ceiling and I had just so much of like an supercharge that I literally just, went to work. It's eventually just put my clothes on, got changed, took a shower, went to work the next day.
That's awesome, man. How did you translate that into running shows? Because that's a whole. I call that the most thankless job in the world. I don't care what anyone says. I've
Yep.
run shows. I've been. I've hosted your band. Your band. You could always tell when someone runs shows. They treat you very differently than the bands who have no idea what actually goes into putting on a show. So, it's actually running shows.
Yeah. So basically, again, it was just part of this whole there was such a lack of availability. I'm like, the big crime in New Jersey, especially, is that there are like 8 million bars in New Jersey and stuff like that, and maybe about 12 that actually support original music. If you're not playing Bon Jovi covers and Bruce Springsteen covers, they don't want to hire you. They want to let you even be on the stage. They don't want you in the place. Yep. So there have been places I played at that aren't common to play at. Like I've played Bar Anticipation, Bar A in Belmar. If you ever been down there, basically it's a total fist pump style club. Very cool place, very cool. But it's tends to that type of crowd for the most part. So they want to sing "Living on a Prayer" while they're drunk at midnight and stuff like that. They don't want to hear your original, actual, intelligent piece. Right. So, but yeah, so basically it was a big push into that. It was like, hey, where can I get my band to play at? And hey, what other bands do I know that can get along? And we had our the 3-in-1 show that we did, with Skywalkers and I Defy. We had the 3 shows pretty much in a row. We had the Lot 13 show. Yep. Played. We had the Skajama Party show. And played Meat Locker, right? Meat Locker, right? Yeah, so that was like really cool and stuff like that. That was really unique. I'd gotten my band and a couple other bands into back in the day. I lived in Bradley Beach, and Bradley Beach had this every Memorial Day. They would have a big Memorial Day festival and have this gazebo outside. And they always had bands out, as usual, cover band crap. And I really have a strong disdain for cover bands. Just if you hadn't noticed, it's a personal thing. It's not logical. So anyways, yeah. So I wanted to get, my band to play there. I was like, it'd be awesome to play there by the beach and stuff like that. And I got Identified to play there once, actually, if not twice. Joker's Republic got out there. I got Backyard Superheroes hooked up there to play a show. We didn't play with them that day, but they played during the Labor Day, that Labor Day weekend festival as well. I got them on that. I think it was last year, 2019. That sounds right. Anyway, so I was like, all right, let me just, fake it till I make it again with Conflagration Records and whatnot. So, hey, I have this little label. And so I got hooked up with people there. So, it just became like a means of like finding ways of like, just making things happen for local bands that are just, trying to find a stage to play on, because it's just so hard. There's so many bands out there. And then you get different collectives, and I won't name specific collectives that have the name collective in them, that made it very difficult to get to certain venues that were becoming popular. They became cliquey. They had their own little circuit of people and stuff like that. And you weren't in that group. It was like being in high school again, It was like, oh, you're part of the group. So, you don't get to hang out with us. So it's like, fuck you. So, and that's how it goes. As I tell people all the time, I'm a water sign, I'm a Pisces. And water always finds a way through the cracks. Somewhere, somehow, we'll break through the dam and eventually flood your shit out. Yep.
Very true. What was your favorite place to put on a show?
Definitely. I've have an affinity to Bond Street. Even though it's our most recent place that we played. Working with the guys there, working with Casey. That was the guy that kind of hooked us up, would get the show and stuff like that. Was the main guy, kind of like behind the scene there. Was a breeze. I mean, it was such a no headache type situation. Everything was just so cool, so chill. I'm definitely looking forward to working with them again once once we get back out and it's safe to play shows live on a regular basis. Definitely that place was really cool. I mean, I dug playing the Stone Pony, but the promoter there, I mean, he was just very difficult to work with. I don't try not to talk too bad about people, but he just has his way about him, and it's just very difficult character. I do really, and kind of our home has been the Brighton Bar, the Long Branch. We played there many, many times, especially under DAA Productions, which is Ben Puglisi's label, who's a guy who lives on Bradley Beach too, who I got to become friends with early on. during just a second. So we still keep in touch, and basically, we'll still jump on shows to try to help Ben out and stuff like that, where he needs a spot filled here or there. It's New Jersey's coolest dive bar in the world. It's like, I know where all the holes in the stage are, and where not to stand or jump and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I think they fixed the one hole finally.
Yeah, I've never actually had the chance to play there. We didn't make it there before COVID.
Yeah, once you get this project going, once you get back out in live performance again, stuff like that, getting you in there is pretty easy. That shouldn't be a problem.
Yeah, I gotta say one of my favorite places that I'm sad has gone was the Clash Bar.
Yeah, Clash Bar was a really cool venue, but it kind of came back, didn't it?
It's under a new name, but I gotta say Bob made that very easy to play. There wasn't any hassle leading up to it. If he had an open night, I don't want to say he didn't care who played, but I think as long as he believed you were showing up, it was cool enough for him. And
Bob was very laid back. Bob Clash was definitely very cool, which for the new is actually Bob Clash, but we won't get into that.
Yeah, so I don't know. That's one place. Like even before the Skywalkers, I played there a few times, and it was always the same. The weird horror movies and the interesting crowds. It was always a good time.
Yeah, no, it was just so like out of place for like the surrounding neighborhood that it was in. It was like, oh, this is actually kind of really cool in here. From the outside, it looked like you go into like the shittiest strip bar that ever existed and stuff like that. There's like bars in the windows and shit. It's like, where am I going into? Don't you get a shot to go in here? It's like going to the meat locker again.
Oh God, yeah. The meat locker is interesting. I'm voting it best toilet of all time. It was disgusting.
Yeah. Now meat locker is cool. For what it is, it's definitely grungy and probably a really cool place to shoot a video. Just because it's grunginess. But the stage, as a slightly, as a 4-piece ska band was even a little crampy as a 4-piece. So imagine how you guys felt.
And we were stuck. But my favorite thing is I walk in and I'm like, hey, it's ska show. The guy goes, yeah. And he puts 2 mics on the stage. And I go, where's the rest? He goes, we don't have any more mics. I was like, all right, I guess we got 2 mics tonight, guys. I remember turning the mic. I go, hey, we only have 2 mics tonight. He goes, oh, I brought one. And the guy goes, yeah, I don't know if we have any more inputs in the mixer. I was like, your mixer's got like 30 channels in it. None of them work. I was like, we got 2 mics tonight, guys. That's all we're going.
Yeah, the place doesn't get much TLC, I guess you could say.
No, not at all. But yeah, no. Again, one of those places where I think every band needs to play once. You have to experience.
Absolutely.
What is the meal? I call it Montclair CBGBs. It is a gem.
Absolutely. And having actually been in CBGBs back in the day, because my uncle actually was in a band called The Shirts back in the 70s. And they were kind of like, they weren't punk so much as they were just more like rock. They had a couple albums out. They toured a little bit. But they were like one of the house openers at CBGB's back when this heyday and stuff like that in the 70s and 80s.
Oh, that's cool.
So I've been there like in the 90s before it closed down and stuff like that. I was pretty young still at the time. But I've been in there and stuff like that. Yeah, and definitely a lot of exposed ceilings, exposed pipes. Don't jump. You might get a concussion. You get cut open. Yeah, I can see the relationship.
Dude, the toilet, though, also in CBGB's, I will never forget that. It's like, it was mounted. There's no door. And the guy, I just remember walking by and the guy goes, if you got to go, you got to go. And I was like, no, I don't think so. I used to go to hardcore shows there all the time. And that was another great place. It's a shame, that's kind of, I love when you go to Newark Airport and they're like, oh, we have the CBGB's restaurant. And it's like, all white linens. I turned to my kids like 2 years ago. I go, they used to have a toilet mounted on the floor. I go, this is not what it looked like at all. Don't be fooled.
Welcome to CBGB's restaurant. So I have $45 steaks.
Yeah. I wasn't even mad about that. I'm like, that's cool. I'm like, but you got to put the toilet in the middle of the restaurant. Just homage to the greatest standing toilet.
I don't know if you know this, but speaking on the topic of Newark Airport and music-related stuff, there is a group in Asbury Park, the Asbury Park Music Foundation. and they actually host a series at Newark Airport that they actually have. They promote like local New Jersey bands like that at the airport. I forget what it's in, but you have to look it up. But yeah, it's kind of neat.
All right. Yeah, no, that's cool. Definitely check that out. So I'm going to switch topics a little bit, Randy. I know we normally don't buy CDs anymore. So what would you say was the last new release you're listening to either on Spotify or Amazon, whatever you listen to music on?
Well, having going back to CDs, actually wasn't too terribly long ago. I guess it was 2 years ago or so, maybe about 2 years ago, I want to say, was the last CD I bought was probably the Backyard Superhero CD, the second one that came out. Because I went to the show that they were releasing that at. They opened up for the Toasters over at Asbury Brewery. So I actually went to that because I was in the local area. It was like, it was almost like a crime not to go to that show, at least in some form, because it was that close by. But newer Spotify type stuff, listening just online, what I'm kind of streaming actively. I really actually went back a little bit in the library because, I find out about things piecemeal, like kind of after the fact sometimes. And I was backtracking through a lot of Suburban Legends stuff. I listened to a lot of Suburban Legends lately, especially with my kids and stuff, because I have 2 kids that are ages 3 and 6 that are into everything Disney. And Suburban Legends does a lot of like Disney covers and stuff like that, Scott Up, whatnot. So those are being cranked out quite a bit regularly. But as far as new artists go, a lot of local stuff for the most part. I don't really listen to too much big artist stuff these days, unless it's like bands I've liked for years and years and just seeing what they're up to. I'll go back and listen to some Nine Inch Nails or some Streetlight, whatever. But usually I'll like throw up like some Joker's Republic and stuff like that. Listen to the new album that came out. I guess it was a year and a half ago now. Was it about a year? I don't know. Austin would better tell you that one. I'm better with time frame and things. Everything's gone so fast, and like already a year ago from like I'm thinking back. Shit, I was on vacation last year. This time it's like was that a year ago?
Yep. Yeah, no. I always say once you have kids, the years just all blend.
Yep, pretty much. I'm like, there's some significant stuff. Like last year this is in New Jersey. For those that watch us outside New Jersey, we have this weekend is New Jersey Teacher Convention, and I work in the school system. So a lot of people go away on vacation because the school is closed for a 4-day weekend. So we went down to Disney World last year. So there's very specific things I was doing on specific days last year, and I'm kind of mapping them year on year. It's like, holy shit, that couldn't have been a year ago already. It doesn't seem like it was that far ago. But,
yeah, it is crazy. So what would you say is like a guilty pleasure of Randy? Like if, after people watch this 15-minute interview, they can be like, wow, that guy likes that song, or, what's a guilty pleasure of yours?
Honestly, I'd probably say musicals, actually. I dig musicals a lot. I actually have a little bit of acting experience as well. I actually have an IMDb with a bunch of different stuff. If you actually look me up, I'm like Randy Wilson number, I think 9 or something like that on the list. There's a lot of us. It's a very generic American name. And it actually is my real name. No Randall, no Randolph. It's actually, that's it, man. What you see on the screen there, that's actually what it is. So anyway, I got big into musicals and stuff like that. From back in the day, like one of the first ones I saw actually was Sweeney Todd, the Johnny Depp version, for the movies and stuff like that. I was like, wow, this is fucking awesome. This is violent and dark, and it's kind of cool. I dig the songs. If you've noticed from listening to any of my music, you'll notice that I pretty much write almost exclusively in minor keys. Me writing in a major key and stuff like that, you might want to actually, send some help or something like that because something's seriously wrong. That's a cry for help if I write in a major key. So, a lot of musicals and stuff like that. I did actually, there was, again, I work in the school system, and the kids actually got to turn around roles and were the producers and had the staff be actors for a production of Into the Woods. And I got to be Jack from Into the Woods and stuff like that. So I got to sing some songs and be on the stage and stuff like that and act it out. And I was like, wow, this is freaking awesome and stuff like that. I would do more stuff like this. And, and plus, again, having small children, my TV's taken over by Disney Plus. So I know like all the Disney songs on top of that now. So.
Yeah. I remember my kids were that age. My daughter was in love with My Little Pony. We drove to South Carolina one year, and that was on for 10 hours straight. I could probably still recite half of it if it turns on. It is ingrained in you for the rest of your life.
Yeah. At least we got a refresher from Frozen to Frozen 2. I guess that's a saving grace. I don't know.
I'm sorry, Frozen 2 is terrible. I had to go see it. It was no. I'm sorry, Disney. Bad.
See, I'm the opposite way. I think Frozen 2 had a deeper storyline than Frozen 1. Frozen 1's like, yeah, make me assume a lot of shit. But here we are, two adults in the punk community talking about Frozen now.
Hey, I think we found your guilty pleasure. So let's talk about your new project. Why don't you give us the rundown? How did this come to be?
Okay, so Expletive Underscore is kind of just like the culmination of everything else I've done that's not Carnival of Shadows. So Carnival of Shadows was kind of a departure from everything else. Like, it was actually one of my early types of music, getting into stuff. Like, as far as like teenager talking about different types of music I got into. So like back in the days when Real Big Fish just came out, I listened to a lot of RBF and stuff like that. It was like my jam, and Goldfinger and stuff like that. So like I always wanted to get into ska music, and I thought, I'm not knowing anything about music, I figured, okay, these ska chords must be jazz chords. So I studied jazz and blues guitar in college because I thought it was leading me to a path of ska. Totally wrong. So I had some influence and helped with things like that, and made me a better musician. But yeah, no, you don't play a lot of seventh chords in ska too much. So anyway, but before that, again, I was big into rap and hip hop and stuff like that, until like Distant Second type stuff, which kind of was like a build-up from industrial. So the culmination of these projects is kind of where it went back to. It went back to like hip hop roots at some point, back in 2010 as well. I wrote a couple of songs in my darker times after my dad had passed. I was just like writing music everywhere I could. That was like my main vent and stuff like that. And I joke with my wife and my friends and stuff like that. I say, you should be good as long as I keep producing music and stuff like that. It means I'm not going to go out and kill everybody. So, that's my event. You're safe as long as I keep writing music. When that happens, it's going to be a bad scene if I ever stop. So
what happened to Randy? He stopped making music. He's in jail.
Yep. Hey, true side fact, Charlie Manson was actually a guitarist. He was looking to get on a record label and stuff like that. So if he got signed, he probably would have killed those people.
Yeah, but then we wouldn't have Marilyn Manson, so I'll take it. No offense.
So anyway, getting back to that. So Expletive Underscore is kind of like, was a variation. So when I got back to rent hip hop in 2010, 2011, I started writing piecemeal stuff here or there, and a little more consistently in 2016 when I relocated to the current location where I'm at now. I've created a project called Hollow Prince. And Hollow Prince was like my hip hop name. And it was dark, serious, and stuff like that. But then started evolving into this like very kind of, I started kind of like pigeonholing myself, cornering myself into a specific subgenre within a subgenre within a subgenre sort of deal. And it became like I had to write basically fiction stories about this like, post-apocalyptic time in the future. The picture that you used for the cover art today, which is what I dressed up as this kind of like cyberpunk character last year at the Halloween show, was kind of that character, was this kind of like futuristic cyberpunk rapping about like, what happened, how the world fell apart. It became very deep and very intricate. It became some like fucking like J.R. Tolkien type shit level and stuff like that. I was like, all right, this is too intense for people right now. This is like too much, And so I was like, I need something just fun to goof around with. And Expletive Underscore came out of that. So Expletive Underscore is totally a goofy project that doesn't take itself seriously at all. I was trying to become a serious rapper, and I don't have a vocal tonality to be a tough rapper and stuff like that. It's just not going to work out for me, especially, this white dude from Jersey and stuff like that with, a deviated septum. It's not going to work out. So anyway, so I started just making it super goofy. Like, there's some songs, like the one song I released, I decided to like make this little song. I was like, well, a lot of people are on TikTok now. And everybody's talking about TikTok, and president's talking about banning TikTok, and TikTok's going away, blah, blah. And apparently, as of this Sunday, apparently you can't get updates in TikTok anymore unless you use a VPN and pretend you're in Canada or something like that. So, whatever, So I was like, all right, well, a lot of people are on TikTok, so let me make a quick little short song. So I made a 47-second song, correction, called Who's Scary? And basically was about like, and it was kind of goofy, but it was kind of serious in its own sense, because it's hard for me to just totally stay not serious. A lot of my songs just end up deep just as a songwriter. So, and this song basically is about, about like, you don't really know what people are capable of. you know, the nicest guy in the street. Steve is one of the nicest people I know and stuff like that. But if you threaten him stuff like that, he will fucking bury you someplace in fucking the Pine Barrens.
I'm Italian. It's true.
Exactly, exactly. Despite my last name, I'm actually mostly Sicilian. So.
There you go.
Yep. So I'm Sicilian and Irish. Either way, you get a bomb in your car. Whatever.
That's exactly what I am. My mom is Irish. My dad's Italian. There's only one way it ends.
Yep. Exactly. Short temper, long rage.
This is the point. And everyone, you learn where it is once, and then that's it. You never cross it.
And then you're dead to me after that.
Yeah. It's funny. Me and my wife used to watch The Real Housewives of New Jersey, and Joe Gorga goes, Italians, here's how it works. You're either my best friend or you're dead. And right now you're dead. And I was like, dude, that's exactly how I've been feeling my whole life. Thank you for putting it in words.
Yeah, it's true. It's very true. I forgot. I got all off topic here. So talking about like.
Why don't you show us, you made the video on TikTok. Where was that filmed? Because that set looks pretty cool.
Yeah, so there's one scene where I'm supposed to be in an asylum, and my wife actually came up with this idea, and it's a brilliant idea. I've joked around that like how people have multiple personalities. And multiple personality disorder is when you can't control those personalities. But people do have multiple personalities. And I've joked around. I wrote a couple songs with Hollow Prince, a song called Number 6. And Number 6 is the evilest form of me. I have part of my brain that I don't let out to the world and stuff like that because it's too evil. So I call him 6. And then she's like, well, you should write numbers on your face. So if you watch the video, you'll actually see different patterns of numbers on either side of my face throughout this video, representing, and each one is supposed to be played by a different personality within me. And one is the primary. One is the PR spokesperson, the person that everybody gets to see, sort of deal. And he'll be written with the number. He's written Roman numeral 1. You'll see on my cheek, but you'll see different numbers change, and there's certain different personalities. And you'll see 6. 6 you won't be able to tell right away because it's actually a 9 upside down with a line like a pool ball. How number 6 has a line underneath it, so you know which way, but it's upside down. So basically, number 3 is supposed to be the most insane energy part of me. And 3 is shot in my backyard. Actually, along my white fence, it turned into an insane asylum. So that was shot there. But the other shots were actually shot in a actual legit haunted mansion out in south of Trenton called the White Hill Mansion. And there's a bunch of volunteers out there actually maintain this dilapidated mansion that actually predates the Revolutionary War. It actually goes back to like the 1600s, and it's still standing. And you can actually go there, do tours, and they keep it in a semi-dilapidated state because they want to keep that kind of like eerie charm to it, But it's structurally sound, and they do tours, they do candlelight tours during Halloween. They allow you to stay there overnight and stuff like that. Really cool. And it's like 6 minutes south of Lake Trenton. It's really easy to get to, too. So we shot 3 different rooms in there and stuff. And funny thing, so I'm shooting this video. And, I'm like, all right, can I get permission? I got permission, obviously, from the guys. I'm like, hey, I want to shoot this little TikTok video and stuff like that. It's just me and stuff like that. And you guys are cool, whatever, and stuff like that. And, the extra $15 admission. So I gave him like $40 to give him like a little donation on top of that just to show how thankful I was. And, and the house is legit haunted. Like, there's stories, like, different. I've read up on it and stuff like that. And they're like, this is verified as a haunted house. There's a bunch of spirits in here. So the first scene I shot in this attic of this place. And so the guy's like, oh, yeah, set up here, blah, blah, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm like, all right, cool. He goes, yeah, I'll be downstairs if you need me and stuff like that. So now I'm in the attic of this haunted-ass house by myself. So I'm like, all right. Now, I have a bit of a back history with spirits and haunted houses, and it's not crazy stuff. Other people have verified shit and stuff like that. So anyway, so I'm like, I'm not new to haunted houses and the concept of like a spiritual presence. So I'm like, listen, guys, I know you're here. I'm respecting your property, your house. I respect this is your home, and I'm not here to bother you guys in any way or form. Just shooting a music video. If you guys want to be in the video, cool. If not, you guys can stay in the corners, whatnot, and I'll be out of here before long. So, and didn't have a single issue with anything in the house at all whatsoever after that. No, awesome. Carte blanche. But when I walked into that place, you could feel this weird energy going on, and it's a true story. Like I said, I was going to this place, I just feel like not so much like this kind of sensation when you're starting to get cold, you kind of get goosebumpy, but not quite. Yeah. I was like, okay, yeah, there's definitely something in here. If not, several things in here. I was like, I'm not gonna fuck around too much in here, but yeah. But definitely check it out. It's a really, really cool place, and they charge like $15, and you can do tour guides, and you go with your group even during COVID times. It's open and stuff like that. You wear your mask and stuff like that.
That's cool. Yeah, I'm gonna go check that out. So how did you? So you filmed it there, and then did you edit on your own, or did you have someone help you out?
Yep. Edited it on my own. Have a copy, legit copy, mind you, retro legit copy of Adobe Suite. So I did it all in Premiere. Actually have a background, a little bit of editing background. Not that I studied it. Andy in Carnival Shadows actually has background in film and stuff like that. So he's actually the go-to guy for all that kind of stuff. But I kind of goofed around at one point in time when I moved down to Bradley Beach. Actually edited a couple indie horror films, acted in a couple indie horror films. Again, part of my IMDb experience. If you look up, I'm pretty sure it's number 9, XI, I think is me. You'll see sound engineer and all sorts of stuff. Blood Lodge was one of the movies I was in. We filmed up in Vermont. Anyhow, so basically I chopped it together. It was actually, the hardest part was just syncing up because I didn't do like a clapper for like where the song started because I was playing on my other cell phone while I recorded. I filmed it all with my cell phone. I have an LG cell phone, nothing really special, basic Android cell phone, but it has a really good camera on it. So I was like, I want to shoot it vertically for TikTok specifically. So when people look at it, they're watching it. So on desktop, it doesn't make a lot of sense. But I was like, who the hell really is on a desktop anymore these days? For the most part, everybody's watching stuff on their cell phones while they're like on a bus or, whatever they might be, just kind of killing time in the toilet bowl, taking shit, whatever. True story.
You can bring it in the bathroom. You're going to watch it, right?
Yep. Just, wash your hands before you touch your cell phone and after you touch your cell phone.
And no one does that. Don't be fooled.
I do that. Maybe nobody else does that, but I do that, damn it. I'll go on record saying that.
Well, that's awesome, man. I enjoyed the video. I watched it. I'm going to go back and watch now to see that the numbers change. I did not pick up on that the first time through.
Yeah, it's kind of an Easter egg in a way that nobody really knows about, except for now.
Cool. So I'm gonna wrap this up. This has been really awesome. As I've said, I've shared the stage with Randy several times. But before we go, Randy, is there anything you want to plug where we can find your music?
Yeah, basically, I just revamped the Conflagration Records website. So now currently there's Carnival Shadows there, as well as Expletive_. Both projects are on Spotify as well. There is actually Expletive_. I did the Who's Scary video as a Who's Scary challenge. So if you are a TikTok person and stuff like that, you could actually go make your own video to the song. I've actually put it in the library in TikTok, uploaded from via DistroKid. So you can find the song there. If you type in Who's Scary, not who's, just who, W-H-O, scary, 2 words, you just find it, and you can make your own video and then do a hashtag, Who Scary challenge. And I've been looking through the feed and stuff like that. Like one of my coworkers did a challenge, replied to the challenge so far. Whatever, scary mask, makeup artist, whatever you got. So that's out there, but that's pretty much where you would find music these days. And again, go to conflagrationrecords.com. There's stuff there. There's merch there and stuff like that. You get T-shirts from Carnival Shadows. There's digital downloads if you want to actually own a copy of a song these days. People don't. We charge it's like 75 cents a song. It's cheaper than wherever else you can get it at. So, yeah. But that's pretty much where all the projects are housed at. So you can find all the music and all the info from there.
Really awesome. Well, hey, man, I really appreciate you taking the time out, hanging out. This has been a lot of fun.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Hopefully soon that this COVID nonsense will be over and we can share the stage again. I do miss playing live a lot. I'm not going to lie about that.
Yeah, ditto.
And yeah, thanks for joining me. And once again, you've proven it's hard to impress. Thanks, Randy.
No problem. See ya.